Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monday Momentum. Today, we're going to be talking about the rhythm of life. So, planting, waiting, harvesting. I actually want this to be an open discussion because, and my reason and my thought behind that is because we are all in different seasons, right? Some people are in the planting season, some people are in the waiting season, some people are in the harvesting season. And I think that sometimes when we hear where everyone is, it makes us maybe get less frustrated because some of us, and I can speak for myself, I want to be in the harvesting phase and maybe the planting phase is taking too long. But I remember that quote that says, for everything, there's a season. There's a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to rest, a time to grow, and so the Bible verse. So that's kind of where what I want us to talk about today, right? Like, what seasons are we in right now? Are you starting? Are you sowing? Are you laying foundations? What does that look like? And then also realizing that it takes a lot of work, especially in the early phases and the early stages. So the long hours that can go, without recognition. So you're just like, when is this planting season? Like, when am I going to get something? When am I going to start sowing and start reaping, right? And I also think about that bamboo tree analogy. It says that when you plant a bamboo tree, right, you don't see anything because all the work is happening underground, every single thing, and that process, right, takes maybe 30 years, and in a second, right, the bamboo tree springs up, and within like 5 months or so, it grows and is touching the sky. And so the question is, like, did it take 30 years plus 5 months or 5 days or 5 weeks to get that high, or was it just that small time? And I think it's all the time that was, all the work that was happening underground, that was kind of getting it ready for it to soar. And so I think that's an analogy that I think about, right? When I think about where we are right now, I think, especially because we are a young group, a young company, a lot of us might be in the planting phases. And I also think we can also relate it to money. So when you invest, right, in the beginning you're not seeing much, but then with compounding and with growth, then you start really getting results. So I think that kind of thinking through like different analogies of life, um, that's where, that's kind of my thought as I'm kind of piecing this topic together. And I think that sometimes the mistake that we make, right, is that we want to skip seasons. And so we want to go straight. And I know this is especially hard maybe for me. And I think some people might resonate, and I'll give people a chance to speak, right? But we just want to plant, and then within days or something, right, you want to harvest. And I think that when you're planting something that is of substance, right, whether it's a business, whether it's life, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it is, right, it takes time. And in that time, right, you're nurturing it, you're tilling it, taking the weeds out, you are watering it, you're feeding it, right, you're doing all the things. So, like, of course, that's in relation to a seed growing, but you can think about it as, like starting a business, or nurturing a business, right? It goes, the beginning is like setting it up and all the things, but then, as you grow, as you put time, effort, energy, resources into it, right, all of that time is not in vain. It's for the season of harvest that is coming. And sometimes we don't wait, because we're too impatient. We don't pause to wait to see some of the growth. I'm by the river, and there's so many bugs and insects here. But so I think for me, that's what I wanted to pause and kind of just talk and just share that with you. And I wanted to know if, anybody, I have a few more things to say, but I wanted to know if anybody has anything else they want to say. If there's anything else you want to add to it, please feel free. If Pendra, if you're talking, you're muted.
Okay, hi everyone. So personally, this topic actually ministered to me in that, in life we usually, mistake seasons of our lives. Just like Dr. Kim said, we mistake seasons. Someone might be in their planting season and they're expecting a harvest. You might be in your planting season and you're just, or you might be in your waiting season and you're expecting a harvest. So I've come to understand that life itself is in seasons, and each season has a purpose. There is a reason for each season, and recognizing that is key. So for me, I would say I'm still in my planting season in some areas of my life. I'm also in my waiting season in some areas, and my harvest season in some areas. So it's really just like that. So for me, I would say in planting season, what has kept me is clarity, like having a clarity of what I'm doing, being disciplined, because the truth is that stage is a stage to work hard. It's a stage to put in the work, put in the efforts, the sleepless nights, the things that you have to do. That planting season just requires a whole lot. And being disciplined about it actually has helped me in a way. And then the waiting season is really that's the most, in fact, that's the most difficult aspect of life, because you're like, okay, I've planted, I want to start seeing results. But the truth is that I've also, in my own experience, I've come to understand that that waiting season, things are happening. Your roots are getting deeper. They are spreading. Just like a farmer, you don't plant a seed and then you go there each and every moment checking, oh, is it growing? Okay, let me dig it out again. Let me check if it's growing and all that. You don't do that. You just trust the process. You trust that you're doing the work. You trust that you've planted, and then you wait. You just wait it out. So for me, that's what the waiting season is. It's not always easy. It's easier said than done. You have to be patient, but coming to recognize that also helps, that you just trust the process, just trust the process, and then with time you start seeing the harvest. And that harvest time is, the gratitude has to come in, like you're grateful for the things that you've seen so far, for the lessons that you've learned, because like I said, each season has a lesson that they teach, each season has a purpose. In the planting season you will learn something, in the waiting season there's definitely something to take out, and in the harvest season there's something to take out. So that's that for me. So different areas of my life, different seasons as well. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to echo what you said, which is in the waiting season, right? I wrote it in the chat, but like the waiting season is probably the hardest because you're not seeing anything, nothing is happening. But I would say that's where character is built, right? That's where patience is built, that's where resilience is built. And again, it's difficult. So I completely echo what you're saying. Go ahead, Elijah.
Hi everyone. Okay, so I've come to somewhat realize that planting, waiting, and harvesting each season demands different versions of us. So planting takes vision and faith because you're not seeing, you're putting something in the ground with no evidence yet. So waiting takes patience and resilience because in that season, doubts can creep in and it feels like nothing is happening, right? And in our harvest season, it's reward, but it also tests our stewardship, because how we handle abundance determines the seeds we'll have for the next cycle. So for me, the real wisdom is not just celebrating the harvest, but honoring every season equally. Because without planting and waiting, harvest will never come.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. I would just put a food for thought if people are kind of thinking. I think this is also the hardest, right? Especially when you're thinking about my expansive life and something bigger. I would say try not to compare someone else's harvest with your planting or your waiting season because it can look so different, right? Like for someone else, they can, you don't know the work behind the scenes, right? I always think about that, the analogy of the overnight success, right? One day we don't know them, and then the next day we know them, right? But if you talk to every single one of those people, except a few that maybe got mommy and daddy's like inheritance, but right, but the rest of them they did the work. They did the work behind the scenes, and we never saw it. And so it's easy for us to pause and to compare someone's harvest, right? Like while they're doing well, they're crushing it. Like this part of their business is thriving, this part of their career is thriving. You don't know, what happened behind the scenes, and so it's very easy for us to be in that, in the comparison mindset, in the comparison mode, that we want to compare, right? But I would say as hard as it is, because like we all want to win, right? We all want to success, whatever that looks like, looks different for different people. We all want that. And so sometimes when we look and see someone else, right, we might pause and be like, well, what about me? And I would say, I would just kind of caution each of us to just, just stay, like do your thing, right? Whatever that thing is, whatever you've been called to do, I would say do it well. And I guarantee you, right? Again, I feel like every week my word is like consistency and reps. But even in this, right? When you do the planting and you are consistent and you do the work, right? It will come. Growth will come, success will come, reaping will come, harvesting will come. And sometimes it just takes longer. I think about Phoenix, right? And I think about like all the hard work and the sleepless nights and the tears. And I know that we're still in our infancy. And so this is still the planting season for us, right? And it's hard. I can't tell you one day that I'm not like, what in the world did I create or did I sign up for? But I think that in this, right, I can say 100% I have become more resilient, in this process. I have realized that no is not a real thing, right? It's just a speed bump, or it's just a pause, because the more you push, right, the more you work hard, the more you go after goals, be it tiny goals, be it big goals, right? You will win, right? And so I'm learning that even though it is hard, but I would say, well, the one thing I need to do better is I need to honor the season that I'm in. And I am just saying this kind of, especially because, especially if you've been called to lead and to do more and to be more and to make change and to impact, right? Sometimes it feels like some of the hardest seasons are crawling. And so I would say, and maybe I'm speaking to just myself only, but I would say I need to honor the season I'm in, and that I'm never behind. And it might feel that way, right? If I look at the people, others, I'm like, well, I want that too, but I don't think I'm behind. I think that I'm right on track, and I would say that maybe someone else here needs to hear that and realize that, like, if you are putting in the work, right? If you're doing the work, don't like pat yourself in the back and say I'm right on time when you're not doing anything. But if you're putting in the work and you're doing the thing right, like your harvesting is coming. And I would encourage you also, like if you're here and maybe you haven't started, maybe because you're afraid, and you're just like, I'm not sure, or whatever it is, whatever seed of doubt, I would say, um, I would say do it anyways, right? Like if it's, feel the fear and do it, feel the whatever it is, the angst and the uncertainty, and still go for it and still push for it. But if you do that, I can guarantee you without a shadow of a doubt that there will be harvesting, and it'll look beautiful.
Also want to comment a little bit on the planting, weeding, and harvesting seasons. One thing I've noticed, especially in the planting season, is that you kind of want to be very intentional in the things that you're doing, not kind of, it can be, I guess, challenging if you're kind of lost or you don't know what you're doing to just kind of like try different things and plant different areas to try things out. I think what you're saying about the consistency. Like if you do it what's the saying? It's that if you're like a jack of all trades, master of none, you know? So if you're planting everywhere, but not really intentionally like keeping up with it, waiting and putting in that consistency in certain areas, then I feel like that harvesting at the end won't be as fruitful if you as long as you like stay consistent with it, that's a really big important factor in getting like something fruitful at the end. So one thing I would want to ask to everyone is like, when do you find something that's like something that's worth planting for you? Like, when do you know if it's something that like this is something I want to continue for a while, or this is just okay, something I tried, but it's not worth keep going at it, you know?
I feel like every week you ask a version of this question. Um, every week, I really
Maybe.
do think every week somehow this question comes up. I don't know. There's no right answer. We just have to build a. We have to build the, what's the word? The spirit of like not giving up, right? I think that we lean more on the side of giving up too early. That's just the sense I get, right? Like we sometimes don't know how to do hard, right? Or how to be in the hard season because everybody wants soft life, whatever you want to call it, right? But I think that if you, I don't know, I think those things that are worthwhile, right, are hard and it takes time. Like if you ask, I'm reading. Okay, I'm gonna share this. I just finished reading Shoe Dog. Shoe Dog is a story of Nike, of how Nike was born and how Nike was formed. And Nike is a billion-dollar company, right? Um, for like the first 10 years or more, um, he didn't have any money. Like he only had money to buy the shoes, and then he would buy the shoes. He would sell it, get more money, buy shoes, and like he was always asking the bank for more money. And he didn't think he was multiple times he thought that they were going to close, right? That like this whole thing that he had built, he had spent his whole life building since he was 24 years old. Like at some point, right? He was like, we're gonna close shop, and he had multiple reasons. Like there was one point that they were going to call the FBI because they thought he was money laundering. That's how much he was just like, I'm trying to find money anywhere to continue to buy shoes because I believe he believes so much in the mission of like putting shoes on people's legs and where the swoosh came from and running, right? And so I would say, just imagine him, right? Imagine how long it took for him to build. You hear the story of Jeff Bezos and how, like, how long he was in his mom's basement building before it took off, right? I would say, Grace, like we are quick to give up. We are very quick to be like, for you, like a year might be hell. Like a year might be, I tried for a year and I'm gonna give up. But like it might need to be 5 years, or it might need to be longer. And that, so I'm learning like the minds and the attitudes of, the Steve Jobs and the people who like built things that change lives, right, for the better. What type of mindset did they have? What type of like, what type of whatever it is, what was in them? Like what was their heart made of? What was their mind made of? How did their brain work? To be able to keep going even when the seasons were hard. So there's no answer. There's no perfect answer. You're gonna have to figure this one out on your own. I don't have the right answer. I don't know, but I think that if I think you have to find out the reason why you're quitting or why you think, and if it's just like it's too hard, um, I don't know. Then maybe you should keep trying. Go ahead, Elijah.
Okay. So I realized that for the most part of it, we are more focused on the destination rather than the journey, right? So I feel like how you would know if something is worth planting is to look beyond the immediate outcome, and ask yourself, does this align with who I want to become? You know, the seeds worth planting usually carry purpose, not just profits. They may not show results right away, but they produce growth, even before, they produce fruits in the ground, right? So you need to know what is this um what is this seed I'm planting? What is it going to do in me? Does it make me feel purposeful? Right? That is the journey itself, not just the destination or the results or the profit or the gain that you're, looking towards from actualizing from your harvest season. It is also important to know that the planting and the waiting season is where builds your character to sustain the harvest that you've gotten. So if the seed that you're planting, only leaves you, it stretches you, I'm sorry, it drains you, it shrinks you or it leads you away from your bigger vision. It doesn't feel fulfilling, it doesn't teach you, or it doesn't give you meaning, right? Then most likely it's not. You need to reassess, how impactful, the journey of planting that seed would be. So for me, how you would know is you have to look beyond the immediate outcome and ask yourself, does it align with who I want to become? You know, um, the purpose that it's going to bear, and not just the profit or the results at the end. So it is the process or the journey and not just the end. So the means doesn't always justify the end, right? The means contributes to sustaining the results at the end. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I think. Thank you.
Okay. If someone else wants to speak, last minute words, and we'll start wrapping it up. But thank you for everyone who spoke up, who asked questions, who participated. Really appreciate it. Okay, sweet. We'll call it a day. I think actually, Pandora is going to chuckle. This was actually a good food for thought to figure out, what season you're in. Take assessment, life, personal, professional, relationship, career, all the things, right? To see what season you're in, and then see how, and then reflect on how you can plant better, wait better, harvest better. So on that note, everyone have a wonderful rest of your week. Let's crush this week and knock it out of the park. Have a wonderful day, guys.